with some modules for recorded purposes so that people can absorb the information, digest the information in bite-sized pieces. I want to welcome each and every one of you to tonight's webinar. It is filling up. We're getting a full room. Just amazing. I want to start off real quickly with a quick announcement for those of you that have been following us, that you've been keeping pace with some of the webinars over the past few weeks, or past couple of weeks or so. Bitclub Network is set to go live on tomorrow. I just found out a few hours ago that there was a couple of the things that they were working on, and so it probably will not go live tomorrow, which I'm fine with, because a lot of people are scurrying to get their Bitclub e-wallet set up. I'll get more information hopefully after the webinar or sometime tomorrow, and then we'll send that information out to our list. So it doesn't look like it's going to be tomorrow, but again, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that, given that a lot of people are in scurry mode. Now, those of you that are new here for the first time, you'll understand why so many people are scurrying to make sure that they can be a part of Bitclub Network once it goes live. So let's talk about what our webinar objective is tonight. Is to show you a system, Bitclub Network, that is going to pay you daily. Okay, it's going to pay you daily. How often daily? How often daily? 7 days a week. Okay, even if you have little to no list. So we talked about the fact that I was just on a private webinar with some huge leaders, and that's fantastic and that's wonderful and that's great. But what about my Joe average and my Susie average? You're going to be able to make money daily with no list, no auto ship, no monthly subscription, and I'm going to show you where the money is coming from, where the revenue is coming from. This is not a deal where the money that is paid out daily is coming because a new guy or new guyette joined, and that's where the daily pay is coming from. I'm going to show you that very, very clearly here on tonight. The objective also is to show you how you can leverage what some experts are calling the next internet. Now, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do here tonight, okay? We are going to give you a lot of information, all right? I want us to be steady. I want us to be grounded. I don't want us swinging around the chandeliers. Yes, we might get excited, but I want to make sure that we walk away understanding her, Bitclub Network, as we undertake her, okay? I want us to be educated and understand what's going on, and not just buying into hype and excitement. Nothing wrong with excitement if you've got real foundation behind it. Now, we will have an optional Q&A at the end of the webinar. We'll have an optional session and then an optional Q&A. The best way for you to ask questions is to do so on our new Facebook fan page. We've set aside a fan page just for Bitclub Network. It's called Bitclub Network Pro. You would go to facebook.com/Bitclub Network Pro. Now, I don't want you to go there now. What I do want you to do is any questions you have, write those down, okay? And I'm going to go to my Facebook fan page first when we get to optional Q&A. We may go over, in which case, if there's a lengthy Q&A and we disband the webinar, if you go to facebook.com/Bitclub Network Pro and you put in your questions, we can address those individually, all right, even after the fact, maybe tomorrow, the next day, or what have you. The other way that you can ask questions is you can ask questions right here in the questions box. But here's the challenge. If we go over and we get off the webinar, then whatever your question is going to vanish once we close out the webinar if all your questions weren't answered, okay? All right, so just make a note of facebook.com/Bitclub Network Pro. Don't go there right now. I want you to really pay attention to your screen, take some copious notes, and then at the end you can ask your questions there. Now, what I want us to do, we're going to get into how Bitclub Network is going to pay you daily, even if you have little to no list, okay? And obviously, if you have a list, if you do recruit, that you'll be able to make a whole lot more, but either way, you're going to be able to earn daily. But I want us to really get that we're at the early stages of a new industry. So I want us to go back in time to the early days of the internet, okay? The internet actually predates when we saw it in the public sphere. We saw it in the public sphere, Mike, in 1989, but it goes back well before that, okay? But let's just deal with what we know, all right? 1989, Tyrone, we had AOL. That kind of, got the internet. You remember You've Got Mail? You remember dial-up internet? Now, Johnny, now, most of us would say, man, dial-up internet, who has that? It's slow. But back then, we had nothing to compare it to, and it was still amazing. The fact, I remember the first time I sent or received an email, I'm thinking, how did that happen? How did I type something out, hit a button, and in just a few seconds later, somebody had it and You Got Mail? Then we saw 1994, Netscape. We saw Yahoo, 1994, okay? There are many people that are saying that Bitcoin is in the same stage where the internet was, about in this range, 94, 95. We'll talk about that. The Blue E didn't come about until 1995, 6 years after AOL. 1995 was Amazon. Who would have thought, Mohan, that Amazon, that started off selling books, Lorraine, would become the world's largest online retailer? Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that? Far outpacing even Walmart. Now, Walmart still does more sales and more revenue than Amazon. They do about $500 billion a year, $500 billion US a year in sales. But in terms of internet, Walmart does about $10, $11 billion a year in sales. Amazon does 75. Okay, who would have thought that? 1995, eBay, PayPal. By the way, this juggernaut just made a major announcement today that is going to, I believe, forever change the Bitcoin industry. We'll talk about that in a few moments. Google. We now know that Google is the world's most visited website. Think about it. If you want some information, what do people say? Google it, okay? But understand, it came about 9 years after AOL was in the public sphere. Now, there was a lot of debate in those early years about the internet, and was it a tool of good or a tool of evil? Was it going to be around? Was it a fad? And then came the dot-com bust in 2000. And then the naysayers really came out and said, see those companies that were dot-coms and now they've blown up, and see, this internet thing is not going to work. But guess what? You can't uninvent something once it's been invented. The internet had been invented. It was the first and is the first decentralized communication tool where no one needed to ask permission. Can I send you an email versus a fax, or send you an email versus sending you a letter in the mail, okay? Well, then we saw the internet begin to take even more shape and more form. LinkedIn, social networking, MySpace. Remember MySpace? They're still there, but they're not the big player in that space. Who's the big player now? Facebook, the number 2 most visited site in the world. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that? Twitter, iPhone. The internet basically resurrected a company like Apple, okay, that had major challenges. And now all of a sudden, because of the internet, now you bring about the mobile revolution. YouTube, the 3rd most visited site in the world, and the 2nd most visited search engine in the world, YouTube. And ladies and gentlemen, this happened for most of us right under our noses. And the question is, how many of us really took advantage? I don't just mean being an internet marketer or being a network marketer and building a team. How many of us really were able to take advantage of this timeline? It happened right up under our noses. Mobile has happened right up under our noses. And many of us haven't really leveraged that either. Well, I don't want there to be another one that happens under our noses and we don't take advantage of it, okay? All right, so we've heard this said, and this is often used in the home business industry: you're at the right place at the right time. Well, let's see. Here were some rank and file employees, ladies and gentlemen. These weren't entrepreneurs necessarily, but because they worked for Facebook, they got stock options. Facebook went public. It generated over 1,000 millionaires the day they went public. Twitter had a similar story. Twitter's IPO created 1,600 new millionaires. Right place, right time. Right place, right time. Those were folks that happened to be very fortunate to take advantage of the opportunity that was presented to them. But I don't know, but I can just about guarantee you that there were people that worked for Facebook that left Facebook before their IPO went and didn't do anything with stock options, or there were people that worked for Facebook even when the IPO went, but did not take advantage of the stock options, or the same thing with Twitter. Let's not let that be the song that we sing. So now begs the question, is Bitcoin, and I need to say this, when I say Bitcoin tonight, and any time that you ever hear me do a training or a presentation on this subject, I'm not just talking about the coin Bitcoin. There are 400 like what's often referred to as digital or cryptocurrencies. So when I say Bitcoin, I'm really talking about the entire industry that makes up the whole Bitcoin cryptocurrency, digital currency world. All right, so is Bitcoin really the next internet? This was a post on April 27th, 2014, and they were talking with a gentleman, an entrepreneur and Bitcoin advocate, Mark Anderson. He was on CNBC, and who is Mark Anderson? Well, Mark Anderson is not a network marketer. He's not a work-from-home entrepreneur trying to build a list and trying to bond with that list and trying to monetize that list, trying to get a sale here or there. Mark Anderson actually was there when the internet was in its infancy. He helped start the internet revolution when he co-wrote the early web browser Mosaic, whatever all that means, okay? But the big thing is he's the co-founder of Netscape. Remember, Netscape was on that timeline, 1994. It even predated the Blue E. Netscape even predated Google. Netscape even predated Amazon, so on and so forth, okay? Now, so here's somebody who was there and took advantage of the internet build out. This is what he's saying. I'm simply regurgitating what he's saying. He's saying that Bitcoin, he sees Bitcoin as the next technological revolution, get this, on the scale of the internet. And he and his business partner are venture capitalists now. They have invested $50 million in Coinbase. Coinbase is like a PayPal of sorts in the Bitcoin economy, okay, based out of the U.S., okay? And obviously other Bitcoin companies as well. And look at this. Anderson recently vowed to invest, look at this, hundreds of millions more in this space. This is not coming from a 20-year vet of the home business industry. Yours truly. This is me simply regurgitating somebody who's got hundreds of millions or can raise hundreds of millions of dollars, is saying they're going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in the Bitcoin space, not just Bitcoin, the one coin, but the entire space. As a matter of fact, he says, like the internet in 1994, Bitcoin today is seen by the mainstream as weird and scary. All right, so he's comparing Bitcoin to where the internet was in 94-ish, 95-ish. I'm going to share with you a huge announcement that was made today. It is a blockbuster announcement, and this is one of the type of announcements that in time, a few years from now, when someone is doing a timeline of Bitcoin, they may very well put today's announcement on the timeline. Okay, so all this sounds good, but what the heck is Bitcoin? If you're like me, last March I was in a offshore tactics workshop, and my wife and I in Chile, and they were talking all about different types of investments and asset protection and all these good things. And they had a session about Bitcoin. And it was the first time I'd ever heard of Bitcoin, and I didn't get it. I didn't get it. A digital currency? What's it backed by? Is it backed by silver? No. Is it backed by gold? No. And I'm thinking, well, it's it. What is it? Well, you know what? And I had to look. Well, the U.S. dollar is not backed by silver or gold either. It's just paper. This is just digital. So let's talk about it. Bitcoin is a form of digital currency. It's created and it's held electronically. This is key. This will be a recurring theme tonight. No one controls it. That's key. No one controls it. Bitcoins are not printed like dollars or euros. They're produced. They're produced by lots of people running computers all around the world. Those lots of people running computers are referred to as Bitcoin miners. They're referred to as Bitcoin miners. We'll talk about mining and what that means for you and me and how we can participate in a Bitcoin mine without you and I ever having to purchase equipment or being techies or what have you, okay? Now, what makes Bitcoin different from normal currencies is that, you know, you can buy things electronically. So from that standpoint, that's not that dissimilar. You know, if you're using PayPal, if you're using Payza, if you're using any of those types of payment processes, you know, essentially, you know, you see the numbers on the screen and then you transfer money to somebody and it's all screen, okay? So it's not that different than US dollars or euros or yen or whatever your currency happens to be. But here's the big difference. It is decentralized, meaning there is no one institution, there is no one central bank, there is no one central government that controls Bitcoin. By the way, there are now over 400 different crypto digital currencies. This is huge, ladies and gentlemen, and all you need to do is ask people in Cyprus, and all you need to do is ask people in Argentina when they basically went bankrupt, all right, what it means to have a decentralized currency. All right, so now, who prints Bitcoin? Well, that's the beautiful part. No one prints Bitcoin. The currency isn't physically printed. In the U.S., they print billions of dollars a month in new paper money. Cash is trash, which devalues the already almost worthless US dollar now. The only reason it has any value is because people take it as tender for goods and services. As a matter of fact, that's the only reason that any currency has value. But money is silver and gold. That's real value. What we deal with in our societies is not money. We deal with currency. And a currency is only as good as the willingness of people to accept it for tender of goods and services. Instead, Bitcoins are created digitally by a community of people that anyone can join. That community of people would be called miners, okay? Bitcoins are mined using computer power in a distributed network. Essentially, what Bitcoin mining is verifying or confirming transactions. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. We'll break it down to its most non-techie, untechie, I'm not a techie sense, okay? All right, so we've already talked about the fact that Bitcoin is decentralized, and why is that so big, okay? Let's go back to March of last year, of 2013, end of March of 2013, in the country of Cyprus. Cyprus, the country, was basically bankrupt. We've seen Iceland go bankrupt. We've seen Argentina go bankrupt. If it weren't for the fact that the U.S. Owned the printing presses, it would probably be bankrupt, okay? So we've seen all these countries that basically countries are bankrupt. Well, in Cyprus, they had this major financial crisis, and the first, from what I'm told, from my study, the first proposals was that everybody that had a Cyprus bank account was going to have a levy against that account. Okay, that was the initial proposal, was to basically steal everybody, a percentage of everybody's money. So if you had 100 euros, let's say dollars, since so many people are used to using dollars, if you had $100, you were going to wake up one morning and you were going to have 100 less, whatever they were going to levy. Well, thank goodness they didn't go with that plan, but they still went with a plan where they stole people's money. If you had over 100,000 euros in your bank account in Cyprus, then anything above 100,000 euros was going to have a levy. And depending on the bank, that levy was as high as 40%. So could you imagine having 250,000 euros in your account? 150,000 is above the 100,000 threshold. And you got a 40% theft of your $150,000 or $60,000 was just gone the next day, and there was no vote about it that you were participating in as a democratic society. There was no vote about it. There was no, what do you think? Would you help? Would those of you that are more well off, will you help those of us that aren't? None of that. They just came and stole the people's hard-earned money. That's why you want to have a portion of your liquid resources in a digital currency, okay? Because it's decentralized. Now, here's the next question. Is Bitcoin a fad? Is Bitcoin a fad? Well, let's take a look. We started to see earlier this year, February 19, 2014, New Mexico in the U.S. was the first state to actually have a Bitcoin ATM machine. Then we started to see that in Seattle and in Austin, Texas, there were Bitcoin ATMs coming to those states and cities in those states. And then just today, someone said, hey, T. Lamont, you're a little bit behind, buddy. What do you mean? You need to go to Coindesk.com and take a look at a map. And I did. And my gosh, I just pulled up the U.S. here. Now, all these places you see here are now places that have Bitcoin ATM machines. Just a few months ago, New Mexico was the first state with a Bitcoin ATM machine. And in Europe, and in many places, particularly in Europe, there are a lot, and Canada, starting to see this a lot in Canada as well, where there are Bitcoin ATM machines, okay? Now we're seeing big name retailers jumping on board and staking their claim in the Bitcoin gold rush, the Bitcoin revolution. Overstock.com was the first major retailer to do so, to accept Bitcoin. They now have generated well more than $1 million when converted. When you convert Bitcoin into U.S. dollars, more than $1 million in sales from Bitcoin. And real quickly, why would a merchant want to take Bitcoin? Couple reasons. One, obviously, a lot of people do business with credit cards and debit cards. Well, that Visa logo doesn't come free. That MasterCard logo doesn't come free. Quick story, side note. A few years ago, I was part owner of a network marketing company. Unfortunately, we didn't make it. We tried, though. All right, we were around for a couple of years. And when we were first getting started, we were setting up our merchant accounts, our credit card processing accounts. Now, many of you may be aware, because some of you even have your own merchant accounts, where maybe the merchant, the Visa, MasterCard might be charging 2.9%, 3.9%. Well, when you're a network marketing company, they charge a lot more, okay? Also, what they required us to do, and what they require a lot of companies to do, particularly in the home business arena, is they require you to put up some capital, almost like a secured situation. So let's say, for instance, you want to get $1 million credit line where you can charge $1 million for the month. All right, you might have to put up $200,000 in capital. So let's go with those numbers. So let's say we've got $1 million credit line. We put up $200,000 in capital that we can't touch, by the way. Okay, that's on reserve to cover any chargebacks and things of that nature. Okay, so now we have our big shindig. We have our big offline event. All right. And this was our first big offline event. We sold a lot of product, and doggone it, we crossed over our credit line by just a few $1,000s. Well, without any warning, 3 days later, we get a letter saying, certified letter saying that our merchant account had been cut off, all right, closed out. So we couldn't use that merchant account anymore, one. Two, the monies that had just been charged over that big shindig weekend, they were going to keep that money and hold it for 6 to 9 months. Three, the monies that we put up to get the credit line, they were holding that for 6 to 9 months. We had commissions to pay, okay? My point is, there's a reason why merchants are saying, wow, we love digital currencies, Bitcoins, much cheaper transactions, and also we don't have the same chargeback risks, and we don't have the merchant account that's lording over us. Now, obviously, they still have merchant accounts, but you can see why retailers, as they get comfortable with digital currency and more it becomes into the mainstream, why they would want to take Bitcoin. Okay, Tiger Direct followed them. Sacramento Kings, isn't that a basketball team? NBA basketball team? Yes. Lord & Taylor, Reed's Jewelers. Now, recently, you had some huge juggernauts, companies that generate $2 billion in annual revenues or more. Dish, Expedia, to name a couple, that now take Bitcoin. There's a phenomenal site called gift.com, GYFT.com, and they promote purchasing with Bitcoin even above PayPal, Discover, American Express, MasterCard, Visa, what have you, maybe for the same reasons that we just talked about before. Well, they represent 200 very large big box retailers like Amazon and like CVS and like GameStop and like Sears and Target and Home Depot, so on and so forth. Tilamont, when are you going to get to the money? See, here's the thing. Everybody gets to the money. Everybody's pitching you. Everybody's hyping you. What I want you to understand, especially since you and I are going to be able to earn daily, even if we don't have a list, I want us to know where the money is coming from. One, two, I want us to understand that there's a much bigger picture than just getting paid daily. That's one part of the picture, a significant part of the picture. But I don't want us, the internet was there. Most of us were around, we saw it, and we had no idea how to leverage it. Mobile was there, most of us saw it, and we had no idea how to really leverage it. Let's not miss the next internet, the next mobile revolution. Now, you can't go to Amazon right now and buy products with Bitcoin, but what you can do is you can go to gift.com, buy an Amazon gift card with Bitcoin, and then use that Amazon gift card when you go to Amazon, okay? All right. I mentioned earlier that there isn't just Bitcoin. There's over 400 digital currencies now, and there'll be more that will come out. And there's a site called Cryptsy where there are actually people that trade currencies against each other, much like you might trade in the foreign exchange market, one currency pair of one country against a currency pair of another country, okay? Cheap Air now accepts, now look at this, this is important because these are two different type of digital currencies. These aren't Bitcoin. There's one called Litecoin and Dogecoin, okay? Now, look at what their CEO, Jeff Klee, had to say about accepting Litecoin and Dogecoin. First of all, it's important to know that when Cheap Air embraced Bitcoin, they passed $1.5 million in Bitcoin sales when you convert that into US dollars, okay? Look at what Jeff Klee had to say. He's the CEO. He said, we had some success with Bitcoin, that one coin, okay? We've gotten some new customers there, enthusiastic customers. We've gotten a great response since we began accepting Bitcoin, and we had some requests. This is important because this was now customer driven. We had some requests for Dogecoin and Litecoin, and we figured, what the heck? We figured, why not? Of course, I put in the what the heck, okay? All right, okay. Again, there's over 400 of these coins, Earth Coin and World Coin. Look at this. Politician, ran for president multiple times. Maybe you like his message, maybe you don't, but guess what he has? He has a digital currency. Ron Paul Coin. And if you saw, I'm going to send out a video to our list here in the next day or so. If you saw the gentleman who's behind Dogecoin that Cheap Air just embraced, I mean, the guy, he looks like a kid. You know, I don't know if the guy's 30 years young. See, here's the beautiful part about digital currency. It's the people's currency. It's the people's currency. You don't, on the internet, I don't need to get your permission. You don't need to get my permission to set up a website. On the internet, I don't need to get your permission. You don't need to get my permission to set up a blog. And because of this phenomenal internet, now it has given birth to digital currencies in the form of Bitcoin and 400 plus other coins out there. Okay? Now, big news, huge news. It came out today. eBay's PayPal service will start accepting Bitcoins, opening the world's second biggest internet payment network to virtual currency transactions. In time, this could go on the timeline. Real quick, eBay owns PayPal. eBay last year, 2013 numbers, did $16 billion in revenue. PayPal did $6 billion in revenue. This is the biggest announcement of a giant putting their hat in the Bitcoin world. Do you think that PayPal, with I forget how many millions of users they have, I think there might even be 100 million users. I might be off on that, so don't take that one to the bank, okay? Or don't send Bitcoin on that one, because I might be off on that number, okay? But do you think that a company that's a $16 billion company, eBay, PayPal, that's a $6 billion company owned by eBay, do you think they would be putting their hat in the ring if they didn't smell the money? You think they'd be putting their hat in the ring if they thought this was a fad? Obviously, they don't think it's a fad. We also have the regulatory climate is warming up. In 2014, initially, China had an ambiguous, actually China seemingly at times had kind of a tough stance on Bitcoin. But now their central bank governor has said banning Bitcoin is out of the question. By the way, 71% of the Bitcoins are purchased through, with, what is it? What the Chinese currency? What's the name of it? Yuan or Nuan? I don't know how to pronounce it. Apologize for my Chinese folks that happen to be on here. But most of the Bitcoin's transactions right now are happening with Chinese citizens, even though they have a government that at one time was kind of against it, all right? Russia had some stern warnings about Bitcoin earlier this year, and now their deputy chairman of the Bank of Russia says these instruments should not be rejected. You even have some legislation in certain parts of the U.S., like in California, saying, hey, this is legal money, legal tender for goods and services. Switzerland, the same, so on and so forth, okay? Now, here's something that's very important, and we're going to soon start to transition into how we're going to start making money, but I need you to understand that this is part of a huge picture. I don't want us to miss this because we were in a hurry to just get the hype. I want you to get the message and the foundation, okay? Look at this. Take a look at this. Venture capital, that's what that VC stands for. Venture capital is when companies are raising money, maybe to go public or at least to build out the infrastructure from venture capital firms. And what venture capital firms do is they raise money to help companies kind of launch. They're looking for a big payday if the company ever goes public and they own some of the stocks, so on and so forth. Take a look at this. In 1995, $250 million went into the build-out, Roy, of the internet. Remember, that's the early stages, that timeline that we showed you, okay? Bitcoin was created in 2009. We're in the 5th year of Bitcoin. We're about the same stage as the internet was in 1995. Yet, they're projecting that there will be more money this year that goes into Bitcoin, and that was before the $6 billion giant PayPal, the $16 billion mama, eBay said, we're not going to let this thing pass us by. We're putting our hat in the Bitcoin ring, okay? So that was before that. It was projected to be past what happened in the internet in 1995, okay? There's even more, folks, and I'll do this real quickly. Here's a gentleman. He's got a startup called Zappo. They've already raised $40 million. I just want you to get this part right here. He says, I think Bitcoin is going to change the world more than the internet did. And I'm very conscious, he says, of what I'm saying. I know it's hard to imagine, but I truly think that it touches something that matters more to a huge percentage of the world. And let me tell you what he's talking about. You know, in the U.S., for instance, most people are used to having a bank account, checking account, credit card linked to that account. And they can, you know, do transactions, okay? In the rest of the world, that's not necessarily the case. Obviously, in certain, you know, Canada and certain parts of Europe and certain parts of Australia, New Zealand, that might be the case. But in a large part of the world, it's much more difficult. I can tell you, for instance, I no longer live in the U.S., and if I want to wire funds, even within the country or outside the country, my branch of my bank is an hour and a half from where I live. I can't just do online banking and wire that. I can't email and say, I want to send a wire, and you email me the documents and I sign it. I have to go in person, an hour and a half one way, to effect that wire. And most people, although there are banks, don't have banking accounts, don't have checking accounts. They might have some savings accounts, and they certainly don't have, most people, most don't have credit cards. In the little town that I live in, there's only 2 credit card machines that I'm aware of, and those are establishments that cater more to people that don't live in this country, that come and visit, you know, because we're in a Caribbean island and people love to travel and what have you. So what he's talking about is the fact that because of the internet, because of the mobile devices, there were 1.2 billion landlines, but there's 6.3 billion cell phones, that a lot of people can store Bitcoin by simply using their cell phone, all right, with something called a Bitcoin e-wallet. And so he's saying that's going to impact more people because it deals with their ability to store value, whether we call that money or coins or what have you. They're able to store value, where most of the world now is not storing value. They're not putting money in a bank to store value, so on and so forth. And now what that means is that people can start transacting across international borders. So there's a buddy of mine that's in Jamaica. He's got an eBay drop shipping business. eBay owns PayPal. Now in the US, if you have PayPal, you link it up to your bank account, and in a few days, if you have money coming to your PayPal account, you can easily transfer it over to your bank account. Or if you've got money in your bank account, you can easily transfer it quickly into your PayPal account. But that's not his case. It takes him more than a month for him to request money from PayPal before he gets it. And so what this gentleman is saying is Bitcoin is going to allow people to do transactions internationally, even if they don't have a bank account. That's why he says it's going to have a bigger impact. Okay, so remember, right place, right time. All right, there were some people that were at Facebook that did not take advantage of Facebook IPO, and then they were sitting beside people who did, that became millionaires. There were people at Twitter that did not take advantage of the Twitter stock options, and they were sitting right beside people who did, and some of those people became millionaires. Okay, so now, how do we begin to capitalize on this cryptocurrency, digital currency, Bitcoin revolution? And the answer to that is in mining, digital, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin mining, whatever you want to call that. I interchange any of those, okay? So if I say digital currency, I'm talking about Bitcoin. If I say Bitcoin, I'm talking about cryptocurrency, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's go back to one of the earlier slides. We asked the question, who prints this money? And the answer to that was nobody prints it. Instead, Bitcoin is created digitally by a community of people that anyone, you John, you Mary, you Susie, you Tyrone, you person that can't recruit your mama to save your life into a network marketing opportunity. Yes, I'm talking about you with all love and respect for you. Anyone can be a part of these networks. Now, what do the networks do? They process the transactions. They basically are there to verify that a transaction went from one Bitcoin account to another Bitcoin account and the right amount of Bitcoin was transferred. So essentially, mining is a process of confirming. That's all it is, okay? So mining is a process of confirming the transactions. So what happens is people are sending Bitcoins to each other. Here's the bottom paragraph, over the Bitcoin network all the time, but unless someone keeps a record of all these transactions, no one would be able to keep track of who paid what. The Bitcoin network deals with this by collecting all the transactions made during a set period into a list called a block. It is the miner's job to confirm, to verify, to confirm. That's all mining is. Now, here's the challenge, however, with mining, okay? To mine, what happens is there are these very complex mathematical calculations that require very intense computing power. So you can't go into Best Buy and say, hey, give me the top of the line laptop, give me the top of the line mobile device, give me the top of the line desktop. I'm going to use that to mine. It takes a lot more than that. It also requires an immense amount of electricity because of the speed at which it must go to be able to answer the mathematical questions, and it requires a significant investment. But you just said to me, T. Lamont, anyone can be a part of this mining process. Well, the problem with most operations, or you and I doing this on our own, is it would require intense computing power and an ever increasing investment of that computing power. Because think about it for a moment. You go to Best Buy, you go to Apple Store, you buy the top of the line, fastest, most memory computer today. Is that the fastest? Does that have the most memory 6 months from now? And the answer obviously to that is no. So the fastest a computer today for mining is not going to be the fastest 6 months from now. So it requires not only initial investment if you're going to do this yourself, it requires ongoing investments for you to continue to generate profits from your mining exercise. It requires a lot of electricity. So if you do this on your own, and I'm not telling you not to, I'm just saying if you do this on your own, your power bill is going to skyrocket. And it also, as I mentioned, requires initial and continual investments to always have the cutting edge, fastest, most powerful systems. So what's the solution? The solution to this is what we call Bitcoin mining pools, where you purchase contracts, and with that contract, you are purchasing speed, you're purchasing computer power, okay? By participating in a Bitcoin mining operation, a pool, you are essentially purchasing the computer speed, which helps that operation mine cryptocurrencies. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of some existing mining operations. So as you do your due diligence, you can look at these yourself. I'm not recommending any of these for a number of reasons. I don't know if I'll have a chance to get to all of them in this webinar. We're going to be recommending Bitclub Networks mine, okay? But I want you to see this. I want you to see with your own eyes this is not new. It may just be new to you and me. Okay, here we go. So Group Bitcoin. Now take a look at this. Very important that you see this, okay? It says, welcome Group Bitcoin Mining, based in the UK. We aim to reduce the risk of investing in Bitcoin mining while ensuring every member the highest returns possible. We, the mine operation, we take care of all mining tasks. Who? That mining operation takes care of all the mining tasks. What are you doing? You're purchasing a contract. We take care of all maintenance. Who's doing the maintenance on any of the computers? Not you, not me. They take care of all of that. And upkeep while you just sit back and receive your share of mined coins. Sounds simple, right? It is. I could show you dozens of these type of mines. Let's show you a couple more. This one is Nimbus mining. This one is Nimbus mining, okay? And we'll take a look here. It says, what is cloud mining? Cloud mining is a service that allows anyone to take part in mining of Bitcoins by renting miners' hardware time in the cloud. You're not getting the physical equipment. And it goes on to talk about hashing power and gigahashes, which is basically the computer speed. Okay, so you're basically renting or purchasing computer speed when you are part of any of these mines. Now, this was very interesting as I looked at Nimbus mining, and they've got some contracts here. Here's a $350 contract, and here's a $1,500 contract, a $2,800 contract. If you wanted a larger contract, meaning you're putting up the capital to purchase some computer speed, you know, you could get in touch with them for more information. I'm not recommending them. I'm recommending Bitclub Network, but I want you to understand that this is not new. The other thing I want you to understand, because a lot of questions we get is, well, we know that in the U.S. they tend to have the heaviest hand as it relates to regulations. Well, it's very interesting that this mining operation appears to be out of the U.S. They've got offices in San Francisco. They've got offices in Miami. Now, I want you to hear something, and I just heard this today, all right? Maybe I'd heard it before, but I just internalized it today, okay? Most of the world is still trying to figure out, most governments are still trying to figure out this digital currency thing. As a matter of fact, even in the U.S., the IRS is just starting to weigh in, and they're not calling it currency. They're not saying it's money. They're going to tax it as property. Now, why is that important? All right, because, you know, this is a mine. This Nimbus here is a mine. It's in the U.S. People are earning every day. They're earning with a hands-off approach every day. But here's the thing. Are they earning cash? Are they earning U.S. dollars? No. What are they earning? They're earning Bitcoin, which really hasn't been thoroughly defined and classified by any government that I'm aware of as, you know, this is currency, this is money. The U.S. is saying this is property. And so as a result, in Bitcoin, Bitclub Network, the way you and I are going to be compensated is not in any one country's currency. We're being compensated in Bitcoin. And you can hold on to that Bitcoin. Now, there might be still some tax implications. You have to check with your accountant. Or you can convert that Bitcoin into your country's currency, but you're not actually being paid in your country's currency. You're being rewarded daily with Bitcoins based on the mining operation. Very important. You might not have caught all of that, but when I heard that just a few minutes before getting on the webinar, I said, oh my gosh, that's huge for those people that are really concerned about regulatory things, okay? All right, cloud hashing is another one. Look at this, contract plans and pricing. So Bitclub Network isn't doing something new. It's just new to most of us. Look at this, mining contract features what? Daily payouts. All right, what are the payouts? The payouts are in what? Digital currency that really hasn't been classified by the U.S. or many other countries as current. They're still trying to figure it out, okay? All right, also look at this. It says 1 year term. All right, so with this mine, with most mines that I have investigated in doing my due diligence with Bitclub Network, Most of these mines are paying 6-month contracts to 1-year contracts, meaning you get paid every day for 365 days a year in Bitcoin. All right, here's that cloud hashing real quickly. We're going to come back to this and see what this could have meant for you if you had done one of the contracts, just as a way to conceptually understand how it could, maybe perhaps all of my disclaimers, work with Bitclub Network. Now let me show you the biggest of these mines right now. This is the granddaddy, if you will, okay? And you've got to remember that Bitcoin is still in the very early stages. So Bitcoin itself is only 5 years old. People have been mining Bitcoin since that time, but these pools where you don't have to have the equipment and you're basically purchasing these mining contracts, those have not been around all that long, but they've been very, very successful. So let me show you this. This is the biggest one. And if I were you, I would jot down this URL, cex.io, and I would go to it as I do every day. And I'll show you what to look at every day when you go to it. Now, I'm not purchasing a contract with them either, but I look at them because I see just how big this mining operation could be. By the way, let's back up. Let's take a look at their timeline. So January 2013, cex.io, the project development started. October, they started acquiring Ghash, or computer power. They actually registered to be a legal company in November. So from a legal company registration standpoint, they're still, hear me, less than 12 months. They're still less than a year, okay? All right, and now they've started their pool. Now let's take a look. Let's take a look at this. And we're going to look back a little more than a week ago. When I did this screenshot, it was September the 1st, all right? And what day was that? Today is a Tuesday. That was last Monday in U.S. terms. My buddy Elmer, he's saying, no, that was Tuesday for me, okay? All right, so September the 1st at 8:57 p.m., you see at the bottom right, okay? Now, let's take a look at the number of Bitcoins that this pool had mined in less than 12 months, 448,725 Bitcoin. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my calculator, 448,725. Now, Bitcoin prices, they fluctuate. They've been in the past couple weeks between about 460 and some change US dollars for one Bitcoin. I've seen it as high as about 520 US dollars for one Bitcoin. And obviously over these past few months, there's been fluctuations higher and lower, what have you. I'm going to use, for nice round numbers, a figure of $500 a Bitcoin. Now this is going to answer, where is the revenue coming from where you and I are going to be able to earn daily even if we don't have a list? Because what we don't want, Rob, is we don't want a repeat or rehash of other models where we thought everything was going copacetically, only to find out after the fact that there wasn't real revenue coming externally. There wasn't enough customer sales to really support the revenue model, and that the revenue model really was based on the fact that a person joined, they made a purchase of a product or service, let's say $1,000 or what have you, and then a portion of that $1,000 went to pay people out over a certain period of days. We didn't know that, all right? So it's important for us to see real, say it with me, real revenue. Here we go. 448,725 Bitcoins mined as of September the 1st. If I multiply that times 500 to represent an average coin of 500 US dollars, could have been more, could have been less. Ladies and gentlemen, that would mean in less than a year, this one mine, put the commas in, would have mined in US dollar terms over $224 million worth of Bitcoin. It was mined in Bitcoin, converted into dollars, at $500 a coin. Some would have been more, some would have been less. Let's say maybe that was the average, $224 million. That's the revenue. And that's the revenue that this mine pays out to its pool participants, and that's how they earn. Okay? That's how you and I are going to earn outside of building a team. Okay? Daily, this is where that's going to come from. Now, real quickly, I want to go right now in real time to cex.io. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in this number, 448,725. That comes from last Monday night, U.S. East Coast time, almost 9 p.m. last Monday night. Now I'm going to go to cex.io in real time. I'm going to refresh the screen. All right, I want you to see what this number is right now, 455,445. I brought this up maybe a little more than an hour ago, so we'll see if this is refreshed. So I'm going to refresh the screen here. Bear with me. And now, here's our new number. So let's do this. So in virtually 8 days, 455,495, those are the Bitcoins that have been mined since cex.io started its mining operation with the mining plans. Let's subtract out where they were 8 days ago. That's 6,770 Bitcoins that have been mined in the last 8 days. Let's multiply that times an average of $500 a coin. That's 3,385,000 when converted to US dollars, assuming $500 a coin. Now, in the past week, it's been a little under 500. It's been, really more in the 460 to 470, 480 range. But a week before that, it was in the 510, 15, 520 range. It oscillates, okay? All right, now I want to do this again. I think it was 6,770, I think was my number in the past 8 days. So this means if we divide that by 8, this one mine is mining roughly 800 and just under 850 coins, Bitcoins a day. The thing about the Bitcoin network is that Bitcoins, there are 25 new Bitcoins that are released between the whole all the mining operations and anyone that's personally mining every 10 minutes or so. So what that means when you do the math, all right, is that's just about $2 million a day based on $500 US dollar per coin. About $2 million a day just mining Bitcoin. But there are 400 other coins that are also being mined out there. So look at the huge profit potential. In the last 8 days, $3.38 million of revenue that had nothing to do with whether a new person joined or not. I want that to sink in. When that sinks in, you might not sleep for a while, because you might say, wait a minute, finally, a daily payout model, a revenue model that has real revenue. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm being told that once the system goes live, maybe a few weeks after the system going live, that the transparency, the reporting of exactly how many coins were mined for the day, that will be what we can see and we know what's going on. None of that putting your name on the line to promote something and then having egg on your face. Who is tired of egg on their face? If you're tired of egg on your face, put a Y in your questions box. If you're tired of egg on your face, put a Y in your questions box. Yes, I'm tired of egg on my face. Okay, fantastic. All right. Let me show you something else real quickly, and then we'll start to move on. I want to go back last week. I want to go back, and I want to look at the number of pool participants. They call them active traders. I want to look at the number of pool participants they had last week, 8 days ago. 269,648 pool participants, okay? Let's look and see how many pool participants they have now. Okay, now we're back to now as of when I refreshed the screen just a few moments ago. All right, 275, 297. Okay, so in the last 8 days, they've had 5,649 new participants in their mining operations. Okay, let's assume they were buying contracts, all right, in their mining operations. If we divide that by 8, so they're growing at about 706 new pool participants a day. Now, why do I bring that up? Because surely, if they're growing, Tyrone at over 700, Willie at over 700, Yvonne at over 700 new pool participants, Louise a day, it must be because they have a unheard of, never before seen, amazing, phenomenal, blow your socks off compensation model. Let's see this. Let's see this. Ladies and gentlemen, how would Bitclub Network ever compete with this? Look at the referral model. Here's their referral model. Here we go. If you were a participant in CEX.io and you referred someone from your Facebook list, your Twitter following, your email list, a friend, a loved one, hey, you can make money each and every day for a year with CEX.io. You don't have to have a list. There's no monthly subscription. There's no monthly auto ship. If you send out an email to that effect, if you send out a Facebook to that effect, you can make money every single day, every single day, every single day, and without having to recruit, without having to sponsor, without having to have a list, and no auto ship and no subscription. Surely some people would inbox you and say, hey, where's the link? Tell me where to go. And guess what? You would get paid from CEX.io. You would get paid a whopping, my gosh, this is a lot of money, 3%. One time. And yet, without a network model, without a model really geared towards rewarding a referrer, only 3% one time, they're averaging over 700 people a day in the last 8 days joining them. And in less than a year, they're going on 300,000 participants. What if somebody took that pool concept and said, why don't we ratchet it up? And that is where Bitclub Network comes into play. Now, I want to give you I want to stretch your vision, and then I'm going to get into the mining process here with Bitclub Network, and then I'm going to get into those of us that are list builders and those of us that want to build a team, what that can mean for us, okay? Let me give you the mine part. Matter of fact, let me do this first, all right? Bitclub Network, I'll refer to it as BCN a lot of times on our webinars, has created a platform. We'll be going live very soon. We were thinking it was going to happen tomorrow. Looks like it's going to be a little bit later on, which I'm fine with, to give more people an opportunity to get really positioned and set things up, okay? It allows people from all walks of life to participate in the Bitcoin revolution. What BCN has done is they've married the daily earning potential of Bitcoin pools, what we just saw of CEX.io, what we just saw of Nimbus, what we just saw of one of the other pool cloud hashing out there, and it has brought in relationship marketing. Now, before I go and give you a concept of what this could mean on a daily basis, okay, we can't make any promises. I just want to give you the concept. I want to let you know a little bit of the bigger picture. Okay, so you've already seen that there's a lot of money to be made in Bitcoin mining, and we haven't even talked about the 400 other coins, because the reality is Bitcoin, that coin itself, is not the most profitable coin to mine. There are a lot of other coins that are more profitable to mine than Bitcoin. Our mining pool will be mining other coins. We'll probably only be mining Bitcoin 1, 2, maybe 3% of the time. Now, whatever the coins that we have that are mined will be converted into Bitcoin, which is easily done, and then we'll be rewarded on a daily basis with our share of Bitcoin, okay? And then obviously you can then convert that into whatever your currency happens to be through your what's called a Bitcoin e-wallet, okay? But The mining part is just the start. Okay? Let me give you just one idea here. Remember the Ron Paul coin? And you don't have to ask anybody's permission to have your own coin. Ultimately, they want to have their own coin. Let's call it the BCN coin. Okay? Let's say there's 1 million of us in time, and they launch their own coin. And when they launch their own coin, what's it worth? I mean, because who's using it? It's not really worth anything, right? In which case, I'd be scooping up, just like some of those employees of Facebook and some of those employees of Twitter. Man, I'd be scooping up as much of the BCN coin as I possibly could. Now, in time, what would then happen is, let's say there's a directory. So we've got Rufus, who, let's say he sells some info products, and he's in BCN. And he puts out that, hey, he accepts BCN coin for his info product, or for his webinar training, or for his products and services, or what have you. So now we can have peer-to-peer purchasing and leveraging of that coin as tender for goods and services. Okay? And so what maybe started off as a penny or 2 or 3 value per coin, I don't know, I'm just throwing this out, maybe it's 10 cents a coin now, maybe it's 50 cents a coin. But then ultimately what they want to do, this is part of the big picture, is they want to be able to go to a site like Shopify.com. Or let's say even Gift. Gift represents 200 big box retailers: Amazon, Target, Sears, Home Depot. Imagine if they went to Gift.com and they said, we've got 1 million folks that use BCN coin. If you take BCN coin, those 1 million folks are going to want to do business with you. We saw Cheap Air do that. We saw the customers of Cheap Air that were using Bitcoin said, hey, what about Litecoin? Hey, what about Dogecoin? And then we saw the CEO said, hey, we've had great success with Bitcoin. What the heck? Now, what would the value of BCN coin be then? Maybe it's worth a few dollars. Maybe it's worth $20. Maybe it's worth $50. Well, if you got a lot when it was still in the pennies, you know the first transaction of Bitcoin, somebody transferred 10,000 Bitcoin to buy 2 pizzas. Those 10,000 Bitcoins today would be worth about $5 million US. Boy, that's the most expensive 2 pizzas ever, right? So I want you to understand there's a much bigger piece than what we're showing here tonight. Here's the thing. If you don't engage, you'll miss it. And there were some people that didn't engage. They were naysayers in Facebook and Twitter. And now they still go to work every day lamenting that they didn't get engaged. Don't let that be your story. All right, so BCN is going to have 3 pools. There is a pool that you can participate in with $500 worth of Bitcoin, whatever that represents. That's denominated in US dollars, but you would convert that over into Bitcoin, okay? That's one of the pools. There's a second pool, that's 1,000. And then there's a third pool, that's 2,000. You can purchase participation in any of these pools and as many units as you would prefer. Now, I'm going to tend to say on our webinars, you purchase 1 unit of the $500 pool, okay? $500 outlay converted into Bitcoin that purchased that pool. I'm not going to say the word shares, and the reason I don't want to do that, I used to be securities licensed for several years. I want to make sure that people understand that they're not buying shares in a company. And I don't want anybody to be confused with that, okay? So BCN has 3 pools, 500, 1,000, and 2,000. You're going to be paid daily in Bitcoin. Now, there's going to be an automatic recapping. Please listen to my terminology, okay? One of the things that I've learned a great deal being a leader in the industry and having large teams, particularly with companies that had a revenue share model. And when we saw some of the concerns regulatory agencies had, one of the things we know is terminology, all right? So we want to be careful with our terminology. I'm not going to use the word repurchase because I know regulators don't like that. Even though this is totally different, since I know they don't like it, let's not say repurchase. Since Queen Twitter does not like you coming on a webinar and saying hey to T. Lamont, not saying hey to her, then if you're going to say hey to both of us, okay? So I'm going to use the word recapitalization, or for short, recapping. When you have a unit in the $500 pool or multiple units, what happens is from your daily Bitcoin payout, 50% of that will go back to recap to buy more into that pool. What that does for the company is that creates a daily way that the company has more resources to go and continue to purchase the top computer equipment. So even if we ever got to the point where the company said, you know what, we're not going to take any more affiliates, and I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, but even if we ever got to that point, all right, the mine would still run, because your participation in the pool says 50% of your payout in the $500 pool goes back to purchase more computer speed. Now, what that also means is that daily, not only are you able to withdraw 50% of that Bitcoin, convert it into your currency, but also daily your units in that pool, even if it's fractionally, are increasing. So now you're growing your pool participation. With a $1,000 pool, it's a 40-60 arrangement. So minimum 40% goes back to recap. You can withdraw the other 60% if you'd like into Bitcoin, and then you convert that over into your currency. And then with the $2,000 pool, it's 30-70. So the way this is designed is that the mine will always have daily recapping, so that they're always in a position to buy the most up-to-date, cutting-edge, quickest, fastest, most powerful equipment for mining, so that the mine can be at the top of its profitability. Okay. Now, I'm showing Nimbus mining here because I want to pay you to pay attention to this 12 months of mining. All right. Instead of 12 months, all right, BCN is going to pay each unit for 1,000 days, almost 3 years, versus most mining pools out there with contracts only contract out for a year or 365 days. Now, here's the thing that's so powerful, okay? So let's say that you've got a unit in the $1,000 pool. You get paid that day in Bitcoin. A portion of that is going to recap automatically, and you can decide to recap more of that if you would like. But that doesn't necessarily equate to you having earned $1,000 worth of Bitcoin that day, so you don't have a full unit, okay? So you've got the original unit, and let's say you've got 1.001 or 1.002, whatever that number happens to be in terms of units. One full unit and then fractional units. Those fractional units, very key, they earn every day. And then once those fractional units equal a whole unit, so you're at 1.72 units in that pool. That 0.72 is earning every day. You're at 1.86 units in that pool. That 0.86 units is earning every day. 1.98 units in that pool. Those 0.98 units, along with their original units, earning every day. Then once you get to a full unit, now you're at a full 2 units. That one additional unit that has happened because of the recapping, that now starts its own 1,000-day cycle. Okay, T. Lamont, I know you can't promise any type of payout or anything like that, but can you at least give me a concept, something to wrap my mind around? Because, you know, this is new to me. This whole Bitcoin piece is new, and Bitcoin mining is new. Oh, did I say there was no auto ship? I meant to say there was no auto ship. I meant to say there's no monthly subscription, okay? So we can show people how to earn daily from real revenue for 1,000 days. And when you understand the fractional units, in many cases, it's a lot more than 1,000 days, okay? Without them having an auto ship, without them having a subscription, whether or not they have a list, whether or not they recruit or sponsor. I believe that message is going to take place, and it is going to go crazy. If you can have a CEX.io with a inferior, an immensely inferior model of only paying 3%. And you can have them growing at 700 a day and generating what was it? It was 3.38 million. Let's break that down in 8 days. What was that? It was 3.38 million. 338. Let's just do that. In 8 days, 422,000, and if you denominate that in U.S. dollars and Bitcoin a day, ladies and gentlemen, that is a message that is going to resonate. It's going to resonate. Okay. So now this is what will happen. You'll register for a one-time $99. You'll then purchase as many units in the pools as your resources comfortably allow. This is when the system goes live. That $99, everything will be in Bitcoin. So you won't be actually sending 99 US dollars or 99 euros into the company. You're going to set up a Bitcoin e-wallet, convert your currency into Bitcoin, and then $99 worth of Bitcoin will get you situated in the company. You're going to get a lot of training about what Bitcoin is and what Bitcoin wallets are and the best way to do this and that as it relates to Bitcoin. And then you can purchase as many units in as many of the pools as your resources comfortably allow. You're going to be paid daily in Bitcoin. We've talked about that. I want to give you a way to conceptualize this. Then we'll start to round out this part of the webinar. We'll do an optional, hey, what if I do refer someone ideas so that you can more aggressively grow your pool units as well as put money or convert Bitcoin into your currency and put that in your pocket, okay? All right, so now, what am I going to get paid every day? Don't know. There's going to be a lot of variables involved, and those variables are going to fluctuate. You'll understand everything is going to be transparent as to what was paid and why that was paid on that particular day. But let me give you a quick conceptual understanding. I want to go back to cloudhashing.com. This is one of the pools we looked at earlier. And the reason is because they showed that if you purchase one of their contracts, what that contract would have earned you in terms of Bitcoins for that month. Okay, so I'm going to take this silver package, go in the middle. The silver package is going for $1,000, and they were saying that, hey, if you purchase the silver package, you earned 0.29 Bitcoins in June per contract. So maybe you had multiple contracts of 1,000, maybe you just had the one. Okay, now what does that mean? Well, if we took the 29.29 Bitcoins, BTC is short for Bitcoins. If we took the 0.29, multiply that times, I'm using the same $500 figure. We know it could have been higher, could have been less. Bitcoin fluctuates, minute by minute, okay? That would have been 145 if you denominated that, converted that to US dollars. That would have been $145 for the month. Okay, so let's take this $145, divide that by 30 days. Then that would give you an average of $4.83 a day. Well, let's take this $4.83 a day and divide it by that contract of $9.99. Well, that would give you a daily Bitcoin allotment average with this particular contract of 0.0048, which is in line. If you saw our webinar where we talked with a gentleman named Russ, it's in line with what he was saying as they were doing the math without making any guarantees. Okay, now let's just stop here for a moment. Let's say that you did the $1,000 pool, one unit, and let's say you average $4.83 a day. I'm not even talking about the recapitalization part. Well, over 1,000 days, you do the math. What's 4.83 times 1,000 days? Would that have been more than the contract itself? And remember, for those of you that have been part of daily models or revenue models or what have you, normally you would have something called points or credits that would retire or expire when? 90 days, 75 days, 100 days, or what have you. 1,000 days. So this is just something to wrap your mind around, okay? Give me a moment. All right, so now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, what you're going to want to do, give me a moment. Oh, I'm sorry. Just about finished. Thought I was finished. Almost. Okay. I'm going back to the Facebook slide because there were people who were there that didn't take advantage of it. They listened to naysayers. All right, they listened to bloggers, and then they missed out. Don't let that be you. Twitter, there were people who were there. They listened to naysayers. They said, I don't understand it, so because I don't understand it, I'm not going to purchase stock options. That's why we've spent the time that we have on this webinar, and this webinar is being recorded. What we'll ultimately have, and it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter who your referrer is, doesn't matter who your sponsor is, doesn't matter what team you're on in Bitclub Network, we'll make it available to anyone that wants to leverage it. We'll eventually have this even broken down into modules where people can watch 20 to 30 minutes to get this understanding, and then 20 to 30 minutes to get the next understanding, and so on and so forth. For some people, that might be more digestible for them to get the information. Okay, we believe our adage has always been an educated customer buys more. They feel more comfortable. An educated affiliate will be more comfortable in sharing the message. All right, and so we want to do everything we can to help you share the message with your list, assuming you want to build a network as well. Don't miss the Bitcoin revolution. Don't miss the next internet revolution. Don't miss Bitclub Network. What's next? Okay. It's set to go live. This said next week. That's because I did this last week. I didn't change it. It was set to go live tomorrow. It probably will not go live tomorrow. I will get a better sense when we get off the webinar, hopefully maybe tonight or first thing in the morning. It may be a few days. I'm cool with that. I really hope it doesn't go live until sometime next week to give people more of an opportunity to get their Bitcoin e-wallets set up. You want to follow the person that got you to tonight's webinar very, 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 very closely. Let them know, hey, just as soon as you get your referral link, as soon as this thing goes live and you get situated, you get a referral link, send me that referral link. I want to go on and get registered, go on and purchase my $99 worth of Bitcoin to get in the system. That's going to lock in something called a binary. We're going to talk about that next in our optional session. That gives me a chance to go on and purchase any units that I want to purchase. And then once you've done that, you're locked in, 99 bucks. You purchase at least one unit in any of the pools, you now can begin referring others should you decide to do so. Okay, make sure you set up your Bitcoin e-wallet. I want to give you a couple of options here. Give me a moment here. If you have not already done this, okay, so jot this down if you would. If you're in the U.S., one of the easier ones to set up is Coinbase. It sets up pretty much like a PayPal account where you can link your bank account to it. It does take a few days to get all your verifications. They're going to make a small deposit into your checking account. You've got to check your online banking statement. You got to report back to Coinbase. When you do that, you can then initiate a transfer, but it takes 4 business days, okay? So it takes some time to get set up, which is why I really wouldn't mind if it took another 2 or 3 weeks, to be honest with you, to go live, because many of our audience are really just starting to get this, really starting to hear this message in the past week, okay? Now, here are another couple of options. Local Bitcoins.com. This is a great place to go no matter where you live in the world. I went there today, and in my Caribbean nation that I live in now, I could actually buy Bitcoins from other people that have Bitcoins that are basically Bitcoin sellers. They've accumulated Bitcoins. I can buy Bitcoins. I could use Western Union. I can use MoneyGram to basically get my Bitcoins, very, 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 very quickly into my my e-wallet. You still want to have an e-wallet set up, okay? Local Bitcoins is another option. And then another option is bitcoin.org. And there you can look at a number of different e-wallets that you can set up. Some are you access via the internet. Some you would actually put on your computer, so it wouldn't even be internet-based or what have you. Between those resources, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to find something that works for you in whatever part of the world you're in for you to start getting some Bitcoins, okay? All right, so now I'm going to transition. This is going to be an optional session. Let me post something real quickly. In the event that you had scheduled 90 minutes and you've got to go and you've got questions, because we won't get into our questions until after I do this optional session. This optional session is going to show you how you can really make some big money by building a referral network. So if you have to go, let me post here again our Facebook fan page. When you go there, like the page if you would, and then you'll see where you can send a message. That message only comes to admin, and I'm the admin there, okay? I'm not there. I'm there to simply answer questions. I don't care who your referrer happens to be. You're going to get back with your referrer. Whoever told you about this webinar, whoever got you here, that's who you're going to be looking to connect with when Bitclub Network goes live. I'm just here to be a resource to assist you in making a prudent business decision going forward, okay? All right. With that being said, now let's take about 15 minutes to talk about what happens if you refer. It's very interesting. This message is already starting to resonate even with folks that heretofore have, let's say, been a part of maybe my organizations that were not referrers. There's one guy that comes to mind right now who, has anything that he's done with me, okay, and he's followed me in enterprises. He always tells me I can't recruit, I can't sponsor, what have you. And it was very, very interesting to me that now all of a sudden, because he's got a message of getting paid daily, real revenue, no monthly subscription, no monthly auto ship. Let's just post that, okay? And you say it however you want to say it, but get paid daily for 1,000 days with real revenue. That's why I would have you to go to cex.io, maybe even daily, so you can see for yourself, okay? With real revenue, with no list or recruiting required, and with no monthly subscription or auto ship. If I did this in Facebook or on Skype or Twitter, if I said something like that, discover how to get paid daily from real revenue, even with little to no list and no monthly auto ship or subscription, for more details, inbox me. If I just did that, if I just posted that, if I just went to Facebook Friends and posted that, if I did that on my wall, if I just did that, emailed that, there's going to be some, Skyped that, especially when people are pitching me all the time. You get pitched, I get pitched. You're going to have some people saying, well, what do you mean? That's exactly what happened with me. And the message wasn't this refined. It was about getting paid every day for 1,000 days. I thought it was a fluke. But it still had my attention, and I opened it up from a buddy of mine that I highly respect, and I started doing my due diligence and said, oh my gosh, we've got something. So I believe if you decide to, you can build a team, especially once the daily paying kicks in real quick, and then we'll start talking about the compensation. Do not expect the daily revenue to start the first day that the system goes live. Think this through. People are going to be making purchases, yes, okay? But then they have to take from those purchases to go and get new equipment based on those new purchases. And then they've got to install the computer equipment or what have you. So it's probably going to be a couple of weeks after it goes live before we start seeing the dailies, okay? So just keep that in mind. All right, so now let's go to work. Let's go to work. Let's show you how to make some money. I'm going to give you another resource. Some of you have seen this. Bitclub Network Pay bitclubpayplan.com. By the way, when we get to the point where we've gotten this broken down in modules, we will definitely spend quite a bit of time here with the module so that people will really know how to begin to maximize the compensation system, all right? So I'm only going to spend about 15 minutes or so here tonight. bitclubnetworkpayplan.com. Okay, there is a binary part of the compensation. I won't spend a whole lot of time here, but it is very important for you to understand where you could be standing right now, okay? So there's a binary, and most of you are aware that on the binary you only have two sides. You've got a left side and you've got a right side. To qualify for the binary, to earn in the binary, you need to personally enroll one person that falls on your left, personally enrolls a person that falls on your right. By the way, in a lot of companies you can't enroll your spouse. Or if you have an adult child living in your household, you can't enroll that child. That is not the case with Bitclub Network, okay? That's not the case with Bitclub Network, all right? So if you're married, it might make some sense, and let's say you've got the wherewithal, it might make some sense for you to enroll a spouse, for you to enroll children and what have you, okay? All right? That would just make the binary go even faster. But in any event, all right, so what happens is when there are 20 cells on your left-hand side, 20 cells on your right-hand side, give me a moment, let me pull this up. There we go, okay? Now, let's make sure we understand what a cell is. When someone purchases a unit in the $500 pool, that's considered a cell. That's a credit for one cell. When someone purchases a $1,000 unit, that's considered two cells. You get credit for two cells for binary purposes. And when someone purchases a unit for $2,000, that's considered four cells. So it's not 20 people on the left, 20 people on the right. It's 20 cells. And also remember that the daily recapping, this is important, the daily recapping also counts. So even if people on your binary are earning fractional units in their daily payout and then their daily recapping, the combination of these people recapping, which there's an automatic recap feature anyway, could generate another unit that generates a sale, or another unit in the $1,000 pool, which generates two cells, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, some leaders, like yours truly, are going to be building power legs. All right? So let me tell you how I'm building. Do not hold your leaders to this because they may have a different strategy, okay? But what I'm doing is I'm building a power leg. And what that means is I've got one on the left, one on the right, okay? But I'm going to build, at least for the foreseeable future, which is probably, I don't want to be boxed into a corner. It might be 60, 90 days, might even be longer. I'm going to build primarily on one side. I'm willing to forfeit some of the binary pay right now to really build out a very large power leg and get people incentivized that, oh my gosh, I had someone spill into my binary. I'm not one looking for spill. I want to create it, okay? This is why it's important, especially if you are joining with someone that's connected to a fast-moving binary, because ultimately you could be in a situation where you've got one leg that's starting to take off so that you can really just concentrate your efforts on the other leg. Now, what happens when you get a cycle? 20 cells on one side, 20 cells on the other. You get paid $400. You get paid $400 worth of Bitcoin, because everything is paid in Bitcoin. So whatever that would be denominated in US dollars and Bitcoin, okay? And then your enroller would get a $50 paid in Bitcoin matching bonus. Their enroller would get a $50 bonus as well. You're limited to one cycle a day. So that means that you could earn from your own cycles up to $12,000 a month. And this is really just, the extra money. But having said that, You want to lock in the binary sooner rather than later. If you've got a company like CEX.io growing at over 700 folks a day with the inferior compensation plan that they have, they really don't have a comp plan, it's just a 3% referral, then what happens if you're there when this thing goes live, you lock in, and maybe you happen to be in a fast-growing binary, okay? All right, so that's one way. The way I really want to cover, though, that's going to make you the most money as you build out a referral network, okay, is what we call the Level Up Infinity Bonus. So let's go through this real quickly, okay? All right, it starts off with what we call Team 1. Team 1 is going to be comprised of the first 2 people that you sponsor, okay? The first 2 people that you sponsor that purchase a mining pool unit. All right, so a person that does $99, yes, you've sponsored them, and they've gotten their spot in the binary. They've locked in the spot in the binary with no monthly subscription, no monthly auto ship, but they're not counted until they purchase a unit. So the first 2 people that purchase at least a unit in one of the pools. So you might refer John, Mary, Sally. Sally was the 3rd person you referred, but John hasn't made a unit purchase yet. Mary makes a unit purchase. Sally, the 3rd person that you referred, makes a unit purchase. The system is going to look at Sally as your second referral for the purposes of the Level Up Infinity Bonus. Now, the Level Up Infinity Bonus is really a coded bonus. And for those who've been in this industry for a while, coded bonus systems are systems that produce massive amounts of income. The number 1 income earner in our industry on a monthly basis made as much as around $2 million a month. And much of that came from coded bonuses. Okay, here we go. So the first 2 that you enroll that purchase a unit are in your Team 1, and you get a 15% bonus. Now, what that means, let's say I had a gentleman who emailed me the other day. He said, T. Lamont, I heard the message. I always say only purchase what your resources allow. Don't hurt yourself. All right. But he told me that he was going to purchase $10,000 worth of units. What that probably means is a 500 pool, 1,000 pool, that's 1,500. 4 of the 2,000 pool, that's 8. That's 8, and that's 9,500. And let's say 1 more for the 500 pool. There's no limit to what your purchase amount could be. Just don't hurt yourself. Please don't go and borrow money. Please don't put your family in harm's way. Okay. Now, if you were referring this gentleman and he was in your first team, you get a 15% override, or you'd make 1,500. I'm sorry, you'd make 1,500 in Bitcoin, okay? Then, of course, you can convert that into whatever your currency happens to be. There is no automatic recapping there. Obviously, if you want to take that you're not getting 1,500 Bitcoins, I'm sorry. You're getting $1,500 worth of Bitcoin, okay, whatever that is, all right? So right now, that would be just over 3 Bitcoins. Okay, now you could use that to purchase more participation in any of the pools that you are a part of, even if it's fractional units. You can use that to convert to your e-wallet and then convert that into your currency. I will tell you that what many leaders will do is that they will take some of that and kind of hold it aside to help new people that are coming aboard that maybe will take a few days to get their Bitcoin e-wallet set up to maybe help some folks so they can get started sooner rather than later, okay? All right, now, let's use that same example, but now let's assume that you have now referred your 3rd, 4th, and 5th, okay? Now, your 3rd, 4th, and 5th are placed in what's called Team 2. And you're going to notice that you're going to get a raise here. Now, this is not retroactive to the first 2. The first 2, 15%. I'm sorry, I need to back up. I missed a very important part. This isn't just based on that person's initial purchase. This is based on all of their recapping. So remember, if this person has $10,000 worth of pool participation, and let's say the example that we had was something like 0.0048, I'll say 0.005. So this person in this example would have earned $50 worth of Bitcoin. Okay, for the day, all right? Okay, if they said, hey, I want to recap all of that for right now, then that means you would have gotten 15% times the $50 worth of Bitcoin, or you would have earned what would amount to $7.50 worth of Bitcoin. Okay, and obviously you can convert that into your currency or what have you. Okay, wait a minute. That was for the day. What happens the next day and the next day? And isn't this person going to have units that earn for 1,000 days? Say it with me, yes. And aren't they going to have fractional units that's going to earn for even above $1,000? Say it with me, yes. So this creates a daily residual income. This creates a daily residual income. And what we found out this afternoon is that this is going to be paid out almost instantaneously. There'll be a process of confirming those transactions, which might take, let's say, an hour, maybe even 2 hours. But after that, that's going to be paid out. And if you want to then take all of it or some of it on a daily basis and convert it over to your own Bitcoin e-wallet and then convert that into your currency, you'll be able to do that every single day. Did you hear me? No more waiting around for a week, no more waiting around for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Every single day. Okay? All right, now. All right, and you could just extrapolate that out. I mean, that times 30 days. I mean, that one situation. And again, it could be more than this. It could be less than this, just to give you the conceptual idea. Imagine earning what would amount to $225 worth of Bitcoin monthly, and this person is not on auto ship. They're not on a monthly subscription. Powerful. Okay? All right, now let's go and let's advance. Now, when you refer your third, fourth, and fifth, you're now at a 20% contract. And here's the beautiful part. Now we have leverage, because when any of your third, fourth, and fifth, when they refer their first two, so when your third, let's call this person John. John refers his first two. John gets the 15% initial, the 15% daily. You would get the difference between your contract, or 20%, and John's contract of 15%, or 5%. Okay, so in that example, if that $10,000 purchase happened from your third referral, John referred Paula, and Paula made the purchase, John would get 15% because he's still in his first team. He'd make the $1,500. You would make 5% or $500, and then same thing on the daily. Now, it doesn't stop there. It gets even better, because when they get their first two, so John referred Paula, okay? Let's say John referred Paula, John referred James. John referred Paula, and John referred James. All right, for John, Paula and James are in his first team. When Paula is in your second team, James is in your second team. So when Paula refers her first two, guess what? You get a 5% override. Paula gets her 15%, you get a 5% override. When James refers his first two, guess what? You get a 5% override on the initial and the daily. On the initial and the daily. And then when James's first two, and Paula's first two, and then their first two, and their first two, and their first two, and their first two, and their first two, 5% override. Okay? Now, let's progress on. We'll be rounding third in just a moment, going into optional Q&A. You start your third team with your 6th, 7th, and 8th. With your 6th, 7th, and 8th, you start your third team. you now get bumped up to 25%. So if that person that made that $10,000 purchase happened to be your sixth or your seventh or eighth person, you get 25%. You just made $2,500 in Bitcoin in that example. And then obviously you would get your daily as well. Okay, and you still have what's happening in your second team going on. You still have what's happening with your first two and your first team. Now what happens is when the sixth, seventh, and eighth refer their first two and 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 their first two, they get the 15%. You get the difference between your contract 25 and theirs is 15. You get 10%. Hey, Rob, Joanne, you made a mint off of 10 and 5. You made a mint, Louise, off of 10 and 5. Troy, you made a lot of money off of 10 and 5, meaning you personally enrolled someone, you got a 10%. Queen, they enrolled someone, they got 5% on those purchases. Look at this. On their first two and 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 their first two, 10%. And then with the sixth, seventh, and eighth, on their third, fourth, and fifth, 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 you're picking up 5%. And you made a mint, some of you, on 10 and 5, your personal enrollees and their enrollees, and you made a mint. Team 4 starts with your ninth person going forward. You get the top contract of 27.5%. So you're topping out the compensation with 9 personal enrollees, okay, that purchase units. You get the top contract of 27.5%. Now, anybody starting at 9 and on, when they get their first two, you're picking up 12.5%. What is that? That's the difference between your 27.5 and their 15. So now you're getting 12.5%. So someone that you enrolled in your fourth team, team 4, they're your 9th or your 19th or your 192nd personal enrollee. They refer someone, they made the $10,000 purchase. I'm using 10,000 for nice round numbers, but I did have someone that said, hey, that's what they're going to do. So great example to use, okay? You would get 12.5%. And that wasn't even your personal enrollee. And their first two, 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 12.5%. And then their third, fourth, and fifth, and their third, fourth, and fifth, and their third, fourth, and fifth, and their third, fourth, and fifth, 7.5%, all through infinity. Okay? And then their sixth, seventh, and eighth, and 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 their sixth, seventh, and eighth, 2.5%. One of my mentors, as we start to round third, used to say this. He used to say, you're one recruit away from an explosion. You're one recruit away from an explosion. Why wouldn't you take this messaging, fit it to however you communicate to people? Why wouldn't you take this messaging right here and post it to Facebook and email it out and Skype it out and just see what happens if you don't have a list yet? Now, I will tell you going forward that this will be the most aggressive build that we've ever done. We will be testing a number of paid marketing strategies as well. And then those strategies that work, we will come back to our audience and we will say, hey, this is what's working for us. Why would we do that? Well, we're good people, you know, despite what a particular blogger says. I love you, blogger, if you happen to be in our webinar tonight. But we also understand the bigger picture. The bigger picture is, man, if we can get to 1 million folks, if the company launches its own coin, and we're grabbing up those coins at, you know, they're worth pennies early on, and then in time they're worth 50 cents, $1, $5, $10. See, I know our audience. I know a good part of our audience. We're behind on retirement, and we're behind on promises to our children for college education. And we want to do things. Those of us that have those of you, I don't have any grandkids yet, but those of you who have grandkids, you want to do things for grandkids. And some of you have been in this industry for 20 and 30 years, and you're tired of restarting, and you really want to get to the point where you really have the resources that, as much as you love this industry, you really just want to travel, and you want to spend time with the grandkids, and you want to be able, if you want to, just to say, hey, I've put my 30 years of networking or my 40 years of networking. I see the big picture. And even if you're not on my team, even if you're not at my level up, if you're successful, that helps all of us be successful. So we're going to share with you the things that we're doing, other great leaders, things that they may be doing that's gaining traction for them. There's no reason, if you want to build a referral network, there's not going to be any reason for you not to build a referral network as we start to bring some of these resources to bear. Okay, so with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you connect with the person that referred you. I do plan on doing live webinars like what we've done tonight, going forward for the foreseeable future on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. at this same webinar link. You are free to invite people to go to bcnwebinar.com. Now, we have people to opt into a list. I want you to understand, particularly leaders, we will never, ever, ever send out a personal referral link to that list. What we will do is we'll let them know about webinars. We'll also let them know about interesting things that may be happening in the Bitcoin economy. So for instance, I don't know if I sent it out to that list today or not, but when we found out about PayPal, we posted that on our Facebook fan page, facebook.com/Bitclub Network Pro. We posted that there. I sent it out, I know, to at least one list. It might have been the BCN webinar list. What we want to do is we want to make sure that everyone gets more education, they feel more comfortable, they understand Bitcoin even more, because then they'll feel more comfortable sharing the message. Okay, all right. So bcnwebinar.com, and so our next webinar is going to be this coming Thursday. We're going to do the same format at 9 p.m. Eastern. The same format, about 90 minutes of sharing. Optional piece to talk about the compensation. Ultimately, we'll have modules that will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so you won't be limited to just a live webinar. But we do find that there's synergies with live webinars, which is why we continue to do those. Okay, with that being said, we have finished this session. Now we go, hey, in the old school days of network marketing, when we would do meetings, we would say the meeting after the meeting, okay? So this is the meeting after the meeting, okay? The meeting after the meeting after the meeting. Anyway, okay, so this is like when we would go to Waffle House or go to IHOP after the Amway meeting. So we're in IHOP now. So then we're going to get into optional Q&As. I'm going to jump over to the fan page first, see if there's some questions. Queen, if you could do me a favor and jump on over to the webinar screen and see if there's some questions that we can start to address. Give me a moment here.